watching ASMR Chic. Come relax with me. Wear headphones. Okay, get situated here. Can you guys see me okay? Hopefully you can see me okay. Maybe if I come into the light just a tad bit more. Chapter 2. Freedom has a price tag. Freedom has a price tag. That it does. Free at last. Free to roam God's great earth and to bask in its beauty. How wonderful it was to be alive in this prime of life. Marvin revealed in his freedom as he walked down the lane towards the big woods. He loved the woods and cherished its company, but it did not speak as humans do. Its words were a silent splendor, a hymn of praise not heard, but absorbed through the eye and cultivated within the heart. He often used the trail through the woods as a shortcut towards home, if you dare call it a shortcut. Of course, Marvin did have a tendency to stroll, and stopped several times passing through his favorite section of the woods. Comment down below if you guys have like a favorite hiking spot, or a favorite walking trail or anything like that near your home. I know I do. Home can wait, Marvin thought as he ventured into the pathway leading into the woods. He strolled along under the great aspen and maple trees as the grand aged monoliths towered overhead, breaking the sunlight like an ominous shield, as if to say, refrain from your intensity here. From here, for here is the home of the fern, the wild geranium, ginger, Solomon's plum. I've never heard of that before. Comment below if you've heard of a Solomon's plum. And the like, not to mention the poison ivy. That I know about. I'm actually not allergic to poison ivy. Comment below if you're allergic. I know my mom is like deathly allergic to it. Not deadly, but she gets it really easy. The sunlight was casting gentle slim rays of light on the flora of this wood, causing an augmented display of colors on the forest floor. He basked in its quiet splendor. Marvin, a faint voice called from the entry of the woods, sounding much like an angel whispering in Marvin's ear. Marvin stopped. Chills ran up and down his spine like 1,000 ants crawling down his shirt. Marvin said in a faint voice, "Who is that?" He thought. Perhaps it was an angel come to rebuke him for his overindulgence with his imagination. He indulged further, saying, "If it was an angel, I would have seen a vision or the like. I'm sure of that." As he pondered the thought, daydreaming of what he would say or how he would react to such a premonition, the voice shouted again, only closer this time. "Marvin?" Yes, he was sure of it now. Someone was calling his name from quite a distance down the pathway. "Marvin!" This time the voice was more recognizable. He was sure he had heard it before, but what nerve of someone to invade his solitude, he thought. This was his time to bask, to wander, and to embrace the beauties of the woods, a time for casting aside all of the troubles of the day. He did not want to escape now. He wanted to remain in this moment of solitude for the rest of his day. "Well, there goes my whole day," Marvin said. interjected. Marvin! Now the voice sounded very familiar. It was Ellen. Marvin was sure of it. Marvin, help me, she shouted. Marvin turned around quickly and ran down the path towards the entry of the woods. He ran just as fast as his legs and strength could allow. Soon he could see her silhouette standing at the opening of the wood. Ellen, he shouted, as he drew closer to where she was standing. Ellen, what's the matter? Marvin said, panting from exhaustion as he met her on the path. Ellen, what's the matter? What's going on? Is everything okay? Ellen just stood there, looking a bit embarrassed to have made Marvin come all the way back to receive her. But she was terribly frightened of the woods. Well, she wasn't frightened by the woods itself, only to enter it all alone. Ellen looked at Marvin with a sheepish gleam, slowly gazing into his eyes, trying to gather words together so she did not sound like a complete coward. I didn't see you. I was just checking to see if you were there. She thought that sounded fair enough. Well, you should know I'd be in here. I love this place, you know that, he responded, looking quite puzzled. Yes, of course, I'm sorry. Could you take my hand, please? She responded, holding out her hand with a faint grin on her face. Marvin looked at Ellen with some reservation. He thought it a bit odd for her to be acting this way. Are you sure everything is all right? He asked, reaching out for her hand. She placed her hand into his and let Marvin lead the way down the smooth dirt pathway. The softness of her hand in his, even though he had felt it many times before, felt different somehow. It seemed to enlighten his senses in a way he had never experienced until now. Oh, yes, Ellen responded, looking at him lovingly. Everything is fine, really, thanks. Everything is fine now, she said within herself. Sounds like she likes Marvin. They walked hand in hand on the curving pathway, basking in the full splendor of the warm spring day. Ellen could feel something from Marvin she had never felt before. Her emotions soared, enchanted by the romantic moment they were sharing, wishing he would feel the same emotion. The sides of the path seemed to radiate in vivid colors. The sun sent rays of joy through the trees, bringing out brilliant life in the resident plants where the shade temporarily kept them as simple silhouettes, seemingly calling for the sun to cast its light on them, but for a moment, longing to share the event with those who cherished this wood. Marvin and Ellen talked about the beauty of the wood, grasping its enticement to free the soul of worries. Here Marvin often wondered about life and the era they lived in, causing him to soul search. This time with Ellen at his side to share his contemplation, he spoke. Ellen, what do you really want to do when you become an adult? I think a lot of us ask that same question. What do you really want to do? What drives you? What is your true dream? What would you do for the rest of your life, even if you didn't get paid for it? You could just do it because you love it. Oh, I guess I would like to be a wife and a mother. I think 5 children would be nice. 5 Marvin had stopped abruptly because of her crazy statement. He held his hands on her shoulders, looked her in the eyes, and pointedly gave her his best advice. Ellen, you want 5 children? That seems like an awful lot of kids for one person to bring into this world. You know, with all the problems in society today, with the Vietnam War going on, and people dying and illegal drug problems worldwide. So it sounds like this was based in the Vietnam era. Just for context. Perhaps it was the romantic atmosphere, or the way the gentle light made her hair glisten, or her deep blue eyes. He was not exactly sure. She looked very different, beautiful, and very attractive in an unfamiliar and yet exciting way. He felt very warm and nervous throughout his whole being. He had never noticed her beauty before. She was simply Ellen, his best friend and chum for always. They promised years ago that they would be best friends forever, but there was something more delightful and elegant about her now. His friends and school buds always raved over how pretty she was, even over many of the other girls, but he never paid any attention. He never paid it any attention until now. Now the revelation of whom he had cherished as a friend had transcended to something he had avoided for so long. Ellen just stared into his eyes, waiting in silence, anticipating something she had wondered about and wished would come true for some time now. She smiled as she looked at Marvin the way she often had, and he always loved it. "I believe in you, and I adore you, Marvin." His heart seemed to melt with him. He gently moved his hands off her shoulders and ran them down the top of her back, drawing her close to him, quite apprehensively. He looked into her deep blue eyes, feeling something rise up in his soul, unlike anything he ever felt before. He was unable to control what was happening to him. He felt overwhelmed with nervous joy. His stomach twisted in a big knot, and it seemed like he could not breathe. Ellen was not smiling anymore. She was waiting, not saying anything. Marvin moved his head towards hers, then drawing his mouth close to hers, he closed his eyes, as she had done with hers. He forced out nervous words as their lips drew even closer. I think, he whispered, his words completely escaping him. He could do only this one thing. He was unable to stop. He was being drawn to her as if a giant magnet was pulling them together. Marvin really had seen stars. Stars in the afternoon. How very strange it was, he had thought. Then he quickly pulled away from Ellen in total shock from what had just happened. Did I just do what I thought I had done? Did I kiss Ellen Peterson? His thoughts were all convoluted, and for a second he questioned his own sanity. No, this couldn't be possible. This couldn't possibly be a dream, could it? It had not occurred to him before, having never had to piece together his intentions until now. Well, if I were to kiss any girl, it would be her. I do like her after all, but wait. What am I saying? He thought. I'm sorry. Ellen, Marvin pushed her away, then ran off, leaving Ellen standing in the woods by herself. Marvin, stop, she yelled. As he ran down the wooded trail, she pursued him like a foxhound after a fox. Marvin! He told himself he would not stop. Ellen would surely hate him for the rest of her life. Although she didn't seem upset, she seemed to like it, he said to himself, yet his thoughts were confused. Marvin thought that even if she was not mad at him now, how he could face the embarrassment of what he had done. I kissed a girl, he said aloud. He could hear her calling him from the distance, but was determined not to stop. Ellen could run no longer. Having grown weary, she labored to catch her breath. Looking down the pathway, she knew it was futile to continue running. He was long gone. She felt safe in the woods now that she could see the end of the trail. Oh, Marvin, you silly and dreamy boy, she said. Looking in the direction of the pathway, she remembered the kiss they shared, the rush of emotion she felt in her embrace. There was nothing that could ruin her day now. She touched her lips with her fingers, cherishing the thought, he loves me. Her elation rushed through her soul to overflowing. She danced and spun in circles through the broken light of the pathway, all the way out of the woods. I love Marvin Pickering with all my heart, and others might think about her animated, elated joy. Marvin made it home in a flash, stopping in the road only yards away from his house. He stared at his home, making a discriminating observation. He could not rationalize the reason why. Perhaps he was searching for a solution or some way to distract his thoughts. The house always seemed much too quiet. No chaos from wild kids, billowing from the front porch disturbing the neighbors, or an ever-present threat of busting out of the windows while playing basketball, or baseball rather, in the streets. I guess that would be baseball. That would be on there. A lot of kids played baseball back then, from what I understand. He often wondered what it would be like to have a brother or a sister in the house. Would it be loud, annoying, pandemonium at every turn? On the other hand, would it be pretty much the same as it was now? Whatever the case, Marvin thought it would be a nice experience. Now with his father gone far away, it would be out of the question for the time being. Marvin mused over what had just happened between Ellen and him. He was troubled, trying to understand how it had happened, but it had. He remembered the feelings he felt and the touch of her arms around his shoulders as they kissed. It all seemed so strange and mysterious as he pondered the thought. He could feel those feelings of joy rise up in his being again. It caused him to smile unwillingly. Ellen wasn't mad. She liked it. She wasn't upset at all. The thought revitalized him. He realized something he had wondered about, but was always too frightened to admit. I love Ellen Peterson. I really do love Ellen. I do. I do. Marvin smiled the biggest, most joyous smile anyone could ever display, while he skipped and danced in circles, shouting all the way to the steps of his porch, making a complete fool of himself, shouting, I love Ellen, I love Ellen, I love Ellen. But he couldn't care less what anyone thought. He was more alive than he had ever been. If you guys are of the age, for any of the younger kids, if there's any younger kids watching, this may or may not pertain to you, but for the older kids and the adults, do you guys remember your first kiss? It was, for me it was, I think I was 13 or 14, and it was like, I don't know, I felt very similar to how Marvin felt. I felt like in a dream state. It's definitely a life-changing experience, having that first kiss. Ellen skipped down the street towards her house, the warm breeze gently shuffling her amber-colored hair. Her steps slowed to a deliberate, controlled walk, changing pace just a little as she stepped up and down the slobbed curb in a fleeting attempt to distract her thoughts. Marvin is so silly sometimes. It's almost annoying. She got herself speaking aloud. Oh great, now I'm talking to myself. I talk to myself a lot. I hear it's not a bad thing. It's actually a good thing to talk to yourself about important things. I think when you start arguing with yourself, I think that might be an issue. Marvin is so silly sometimes, it's almost annoying. She got herself speaking aloud. Oh great, now I'm talking to myself. Her Aunt Ruby often said, it isn't normal to talk to yourself, and certainly even worse if you answer. Well, Marvin talks to himself, Ellen thought, but it's okay. That is just his way of figuring things out. He only does that when he's stressed, she thought. Ellen hoped Marvin wasn't stressed after what had just happened. Ellen walked up the driveway from the lane that led towards her house, still wondering if Marvin was all right. She was remembering the way he looked when he realized what just happened. seemed terribly embarrassed. Ellen hoped that Marvin wasn't upset. How her emotions swayed. First, she was happy, and now, deep melancholy fell on her spirit like a great fog drifting into harbor. Ellen could feel the tears well up in her eyes as the thoughts swirled through her mind like a whirlwind. "Oh, Marvin, please don't be upset with me," she said, as the tears ran down her face. Ellen ran the rest of the way to the house, unable to talk. Her emotions were choking her whole spirit, causing her to feel heartbroken and confused. Ellen buzzed through the front door of her home, stopping only to wipe the tears from her eyes before proceeding to run towards her bedroom. The slam of the bedroom door almost shook the family pictures off the wall in the hallway. "Ellen! Ellen!" her mother shouted. "What in the world has gotten into that little girl?" Ellen's mother said, noticing her daughter in despair. She set down the feather duster she was using onto the settee, and walked purposely down the hallway towards Ellen's room. "I wonder what that strange occurrence is all about," she said within herself with a puzzled look on her face. Ellen was usually a very happy girl, sometimes to a fault. Life just did not seem to bother her or infuse a negative spirit in her. She always seemed to find good in everyone, except Miss Klein. I don't know if you guys remember from chapter 1, Miss Klein is the teacher. Her school teacher, of course, not many people did. Marvin doesn't like her either. She was the cantankerous sort. Ellen's mother entered Ellen's room and walked over to where she was now sobbing, face down, on the small single-sized canopy bed. She gently touched Ellen on her head, stroking her long, soft hair. Ellen, honey, what's the matter? It's not normal for you to be this way. What happened to you?" Ellen turned and grasped her mother with both of her arms, holding onto her waist. "Oh, Mom, I think I've done something terrible." Ellen's mother held onto her and tried to console her, hoping somehow to bring resolution to her demise. "Tell me what's happened, honey. What could be so terrible that you would shed so many tears?" Ellen's mother gently separated their hold, looking down at the tear-drenched face of her lovely girl. She took the dish towel out of her apron and gently wiped the tears from Ellen's face. "Now come on, tell your mother what this so-called terrible thing is that you've done." "Oh, Mom, I think Marvin may be upset with me or even hate me." Ellen could barely get her words out without breaking into tears. Becky Peterson tried to remain serious, but she could not believe how silly that statement was. "Come on now, you know Marvin wouldn't be that way." Ellen looked at her mother. A glimmer of hope seemed to radiate from her face. Do you really think so?" Ellen's mother looked at her with a look as if to say, "Duh." However, she spoke deliberately, assuring her obviously maturing daughter, "This is Marvin Pickering we're talking about here, the boy who has been your best friend since you were 6 years old. What could you possibly do to make him upset enough to not like you?" Ellen told her mother the whole story about the walk in the woods, holding hands, looking into each other's eyes, and the kiss. "Oh, Mom, he pushed me away and ran out of the woods. I tried to catch up to him, but he just kept going and wouldn't stop." Ellen grasped her mother, holding her tight, and started to cry again. Ellen's mother just sat there on the bed, holding her heartbroken daughter, unable to believe what she had just heard. "Is my little girl in love?" she thought. so close, especially being best friends all those years, making it many times easier for something like this to happen. You have to learn self-control. The Word of God states that temperance is something you add to your faith. With what that means is self-control. It's important to practice this. It's a safeguard God put in us to help us get out of trouble. Besides that, you're a bit young to be falling in love, don't you think, baby girl? She said, smiling and holding Ellen's face in her hands. Ellen looked into her mother's eyes. She could tell her mother wasn't angry at all, only concerned about her spiritual and emotional well-being, just as always. Ellen loved her mother so much. She always knew how to help her in times of need, but she couldn't shake her feelings for Marvin. She did love him dearly. Ellen's mom went on saying, "Look, baby girl, I'm quite sure, knowing boys like I do, Marvin is just confused about this whole thing, just as you are. He no doubt is quite embarrassed about kissing a girl, especially one as lovely as you." Ellen looked at her mother with a questioning look. Yes, you. No, don't you fret any. Rest assured, Marvin still loves you. Ellen hugged her mother again, sniffling and saying, "Oh, Mom, I love you so much. I love you too, honey. Now why don't you go do your chores and your homework? That should help take your mind off Marvin for the rest of the day." Ellen loosed her hug and looked at her mother with a silly grin. "Go on, honey. I can hear a sink full of dishes calling your name." "Oh, Mom," Ellen complained. "Go on. Go. She said, giving Ellen a gentle shove off the bed. "And don't forget to dry also. That's an important part of doing your dishes. You gotta dry those dishes too. You don't want to have them little water spots all over your dishes." Now back to Marvin. Marvin stood outside his home and stared at the structure for a while. The house was typical turn-of-the-century colonial-style home, common to this area, with a pillared porch and a quaint multicolored look. A white picket fence made with a perfect rectangular on the border of the property. A perfect rectangle on the border of the property. It had 4 gates. A white picket fence made of perfect rectangle. Sorry, I lost my place. It had 4 gates, one for each direction. The front gate was to the north of the house, with a lattice arch laced with wisteria in full bloom, displaying pretty blues and purple for the entire world to admire. The western gate led to the Hanson's house, another quaint colonial-style home, yet not as nice as his, he thought, at least in his estimation anyway. I think all kids think their stuff is the best. Everybody does. It's a good sense of pride. There's nothing wrong with having a sense of pride as long as it doesn't hurt other people. Or bump your ego up too much. The ego won't get the best of you. But that's another story. The east gate led to Gates Hallway, a gravel road that led to the Gates estate about a mile up the road. Not more than an alleyway away, if you ask me, Marvin contested, talking out loud to himself as he often did. Marvin did not like the Gates family. To him, they were snobs, to say the least. They had a lot of money and owned several taverns in town. In fact, they owned every tavern in town. They were simply wicked people in Marvin's book. The back gate to the south end of the house was Marvin's favorite gate. It led to the city park and the ball field. He loved the times his father would take him to the field and practice catching a baseball, or hitting the balls as hard as they could to see if they would land in the Gates' swimming pool. That's pretty messed up. Marvin really missed his dad. Why did he have to leave? so Marvin would not make a scene, even though her own tears had fallen like rain. He remembered the trip back home that day, the overwhelming silence, and the morose feeling that night when he was in his bed, hearing his mother crying herself to sleep. He believed in his heart he would never see his father again, even though many letters came in the mail speaking of where his dad was and what he was doing. It did not fill the void that was present in their home. He remembered the last time he talked to his dad on the phone. He had not heard his voice in over 8 months. What a delight it was to hear his voice again. Nevertheless, when he finished the conversation, he still longed for the day his dad would finally come home to stay. It has been 13 months since his father had left. A very long 13 months. Marvin's emotions stirred in him from the confusion going through his spirit. He had never felt this way before. He needed a man to talk with. Dad, please come home soon. I need you. I need you now. Marvin spoke out loud as tears welled up in his eyes. Marvin made his way up the few steps onto the front porch, pausing to wipe the tears from his eyes in order to gain his composure before entering the house. When he entered the front door, he couldn't see his mother anywhere. Where could she be? Mom! Mom, where are you? Marvin searched the house for her, running through the hallway, looking into every bedroom and even the bathroom. It was highly unusual for his mother not to greet him at the door. He just knew something was wrong. Mom! He hesitated for a moment, hearing something. You can hear my stomach growling. It was the sound of his mother crying in the backyard. Mom! Marvin ran through the kitchen, throwing the back door open to an unusual extent. Mom! Marvin looked towards the gazebo, seeing his mother slumped over the Waker love seat, clutching an unfolded, official-looking letter in her slender left hand, while holding her head with her right. What was going on? It could not be good news with all the tears she was shedding. Dread clutched Marvin as he drew closer to where his mother was sitting. He sat down on the wicker love seat next to his mother, looking at her, and then at the letter she was gripping tight in her right hand. It was an official military letter concerning some news about his father. His mother could not speak. The worry was too great for her to bear. She handed the letter to Marvin so he could read it for himself. His hands shook from fear. His hands shook from fear of what he was about to read. I don't know if you've ever been so scared, but like your hands start shaking and you're like trembling, and it's just really hard to keep your composure. Anxiety mounted up in him like a great raging inferno, trying to consume him as he slowly read. Quote, Master Sergeant J. Pickering is considered missing in action. Unquote. My dear God, why does freedom have to amount to this? Marvin thought. Dad, no, not my dad. Why him? He said as the tears flowed down his face from the gross reality that now gripped his soul. The letter dropped to the ground, fluttering gently back and forth, like a falling dry leaf in autumn, finally resting face up on the blank decking. Marvin held onto his mother crying bitterly as they gently rocked together in the seat, sharing tears and comforting one another during this time of great loss and suffering, with the feeling of utter helplessness, unable to gain a remedy for their problem. Freedom has a price tag. Freedom has a price tag. And this is original artwork by the author. He's both the author and the illustrator of this book. So that is the end of chapter 2. Freedom as a price tag. And of course we're going to put our placeholder in our book at chapter 3 so we can continue on to chapter 3 after this. That'll be on the next episode of Let's Read. That was kind of an emotional chapter. A lot of emotions. We started off with a kiss and love and ended it with some tears and some worry in regards to Marvin's father being missing in action. Hopefully his father is okay. I'm sure we'll find out soon. So if you're awake and you've been following along with me, let me know in the comments what you think is going to happen to Marvin's father and what you think is going to happen in the next chapter, in chapter 3. I'll give you a little preview. Chapter 3 is called Escape to the Big Woods. Escape to the Big Woods. Escape to the Big Woods. So let me know in the comments what you think that could mean, what you think is going to happen in chapter 3 in regards to escaping into the big woods. If you guys are asleep, I hope you're having sweet dreams. I hope you're having an amazing time in that beautiful world that we all love to explore and go to. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. That was emotional. So I'm looking forward to chapter 3 for sure. And that'll be on the next episode, like I said. Also, there is a playlist available, so all these episodes are going to be going into that playlist. So that way when we finish the book, you can go back and listen to it. Also, if you are interested in the book, there is a link in the description where you can go and buy that book for yourself. There's a soft cover like this, there's a hard cover, and there is the digital download, which I believe is the least expensive option. It's not expensive. I think the most expensive option is the hardcover, the hardback for like $15, I think. And then it's cheaper, obviously, to get this one and then the digital copy. But if you'd like to just listen to it for free, it will be available here on my channel for free. You won't be able to read it, obviously, but you can listen to it. It's basically a free audiobook that I'm giving to you as a thank you for being here with me. So I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. Remember that you are important and you are validated. You are loved. Whether you believe in God or the universe, whatever, or whomever you believe in, you have a purpose here. In this world, in this lifetime here today, you have a purpose. I don't like getting on the soapbox too much, but I just want you guys to know that you are loved and you do have a purpose for being here. You might be going through a hard time right now, or you might not. And it might be hard to see sometimes what purpose you may have. Sometimes it's hard for me too, but just remember that you do have a purpose for being here. Whatever it may be, the universe or God has that in store for you. And will reveal that in time. So, I appreciate you guys. My name is JJ, the Chic Prince, and you have been watching ASMR Chic. Love you guys.